you. Can you hear me clearly and see the slides?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. All right. And hello, everybody. So indeed, I'm Tine Lewi, working in clinical innovation at Janssen. My presentation will emphasize on a few points. And as I'm the last speaker, I have a benefit that quite some concepts have been mentioned. So some concepts I'll go over rather fast, faster than I expected. So because they are explained already. I'm going to talk a bit more about data enrichment. We've heard several terms for that, like data linkage, data enrichment through collaboration across the health ecosystem. I understand this is an ambitious statement. And again, to make it even more ambitious, and we've heard about the patient focus today, but we also believe in all the work that we do that the patients should be central time. So from the research perspective, and this is all in the light of personalized medicine and advancing this science and the medical progress in personalized medicine, we have a need for the phenotypical, like the data that is in the EHR, electronic health record, but combined to the genotypic. This is already quite a challenge to have this combination of data, you could say, to enrich basic EHR data with the genotypic data. We've also heard in the last presentation that there are already efforts ongoing to include behavioral types of data, physical activity. It's very important also in clinical research, for example, but also for continuously monitoring and improving the care for the patient. And then a last type is the social data or social environmental data that can play a key role. It's been mentioned also. Access or awareness about personal data is also quite educational and economically linked to the social status. So in order to have equal access, this social element of the data will become more and more important. So we are at a tipping point. We have large volumes of data, but the challenge is really to connect them, and not just connect them all of a sudden, but well thought through. And therefore we need ethical, legal, and privacy frameworks that are still largely missing today. Again, I emphasize the importance of the patient, but also of the physician to involve in this entire process. So I was planning to explain what federated data management is, but I'm grateful to Catherine, who has already explained how it can work in the Swiss example. This is really, to me, a phenomenal development that has a strong core in Europe. And one of the first projects were also public-private across Europe, like IMI, EHR for CR, electronic health records for clinical research. So from there, the federated data management approach, where the data really stays in the hospital, has gained traction. Catherine has also explained that researchers can get results, but only query-based and receiving aggregated numbers. So there is no patient data leaving the hospital. And actually the whole principle that I'll also explain and emphasize a bit more in these few minutes is that the analysis will go to the data instead of the data in the past having to go to the analysis or to the place outside the hospital or where the data is captured. That's the past, then that was needed, but more and more we have systems in place across Europe. We have diverse projects emerging that are introducing federated data management. Now, this is very important, but it's the basis. What we're doing, and in the clinical research as well as the care, there is need for some more level of analytic complexity. Query-based, you could say, on the hierarchy of data analytics, it's the basis. It's a strong foundation. It's the first thing that has to be put in place. But for more precision-based medicine, there is a need for what we call predictive or prescriptive analytics. And that goes beyond query-based. So this is an example from Flanders. It's funded by the Flemish agency Vlaio, and it's just starting off. but it's building further on the basic federated data management and advancing into the machine learning. This is still quite research-based, and the project itself is called Tine. It stands for Augmenting Therapeutic Effectiveness Through Novel Analytics. We've also chosen for a disease-specific approach. So we narrow down a bit the problem of consolidating the data. And the disease areas that we've selected are bladder cancer and multiple myeloma. So this is a public-private collaboration. It's really innovation in data science, where we bring in a biomedical company, the hospitals, several academic centers, and also very important technology providers and small and medium enterprises that can help us defining, for example, a data governance. So the improvement in data management is essential, the quality of the data and augmented real-world data, as we call it. And then last but not least, we have the key focus on making this all privacy preserved. And the machine learning, or this concept of privacy preserved machine learning, is still very unique. Again, in the Flemish region, I'm conscious also beyond Flanders, there are only a few research centers that are specialized in this, but it's again a very strong European concept that can help us build a secure and a trustworthy environment for sharing data. So I'm going to walk through some visuals and also curious about your questions on this. But as it works today, so a physician sees a patient, has access in the clinical care setting, in the healthcare setting, to data from the electronic health record, imaging data, genomics data, and as I've already mentioned, also more and more the patient-generated data. So what we're really looking at now is to make that data that's still fragmented and spread everywhere in all kinds of databases, structured and unstructured, not to forget, and with a lot of missing data. So to make that kind of high quality, even potentially regulatory grade. That means that it could be used, of course, to support the care processes, but also for clinical research and for regulatory submissions. This is still a journey to go, but we also are convinced if we don't start today with smaller initiatives, very focused, we've chosen for disease areas, then we don't make any progress. So again, the concept is that the data will absolutely stay within the hospitals. And I mentioned here like FHIR and OMOP, perhaps some of you know that it's all about standards. I'm not saying these are the only ones, but these are quite accepted and also from an open source, open science perspective, quite adaptable and flexible. Again, what we envision, again, big term, learning systems across hospitals, and we also believe that stepwise, with small examples in, again, specific disease areas, we can build this ecosystem and collaboration across hospitals, and also in a well-regulated way with the industry and the healthcare institutions. So we've talked about federated query management, but also added the privacy-preserved federated machine learning. And we all want to put this in place. It's really a huge effort. We want to put this in place to gain better medical insights, as I emphasized, as well to support better the care, so the physicians, the patients, of course, to manage their diseases, and also the industry can be academic research as well. So the two use cases that we, again, focus on to make small steps, but it's, I guess, already quite ambitious, is to put in place a use case on risk stratification. So a patient, and you really need to understand the whole disease spectrum for that. What is the disease pathway? And I think also as patients or citizens, we would like to know, what's up, what are the options, where are we in a certain spectrum of a disease, what are our chances? So better insights, not only for the well-educated, but yeah, that's another challenge. Treatment optimization, again, every physician is concerned, and also in the research, we would like to know how our new developments in treatments can help to optimize and get to, again, more personalized targeted results. Outcomes-based research, also a whole separate chapter. Needless to say, treatments and personalized medicine treatments are expensive, and there is also evidence needed. So here it's about also generating that evidence, working with the different partners in regulatory and reimbursement to generate this real-world evidence and again have access to true real-world data. And the other use case is more in the research area. So we're really conscious in personalized medicine. The clinical trials are very complex. The inclusion criteria are very strict and narrow, but this is also to make sure that the treatment can be of benefit to the patient. So it's actually much more complex, again, in an academic and in an industrial research setting to find patients for these personalized medicines. And we know there are more patients out there than the ones that have access to the trials today. So these are the kind of the two concrete use cases that we're involved in, actually in numerous projects already. Public, private funded, very important to ensure a collaboration within the ecosystem. And then my last point actually is, why do we want to make this effort? And I want to emphasize again, it's not only technology. I think technology is the least of our concerns. So it's really to have this across the disease spectrum. Personalized medicine gives unique opportunities for prevention. We all are aware of that. But gaining these insights from a person individually, again, anonymized, aggregated, at also population level on larger cohorts. So for prevention, for early interception of the disease, even before the symptoms are emerging, and then to develop also better cures. For all stakeholders in the health system, there are gains if we have better medical insights. And ultimately, we want to eliminate disease, very ambitious, but I think by making small steps and collaborating, again, what has to happen in the coming years is also in Europe to have a kind of a very solid framework for ethical and legal acceptability and possibility to run this research. So I thank you, and in case of any questions, please ask.
Thank you a lot, Tine, for this really interesting presentation on this project. So the data is only available for this project within the context of the project for certain researchers?
That's so the project Athena specifically, that is at the moment, it's really starting up and it will be used across the centers, but we do already start with valorization and scaling. And then, of course, with all I said, we would like to have broader use also of these types of methods and approaches. We're actually already reaching out to more centers. So the answer is it will be open, but at the moment it's we're setting it up and really doing the research of this project with a few centers, 2 major centers in Flanders.
Mm-hmm. And concerning the patients, do they participate actively? What's how many patients, or what's the percentage of patients opting in?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as the project just started a few months ago, but we will work with patients, and this is one of the questions that we also have to ask. We will work, because we focus first on bladder cancer and multiple myeloma, with the patient associations, and in this way run some surveys, for example. So we hope like in a year, this will run for 3 years. And it's really the aim to also share the best practices of this project. And that's the also benefit of a public-private funded project. So together with the consortium, we'll first do some basic research, and having like patient consent information is very important. We will reach out to the patient associations on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice. We have also a question: what would it take to ensure a broader rollout and use of such a project at the benefit of the population?
Yes, I think again, if more centers could contribute, and as this is still in the research phase, we will learn along the way. This is innovation, so some things will work out. That's also a bit a challenge in innovation projects. We will learn things. We may not succeed immediately in everything, but it would be of benefit. The more patients that join, it's a little bit as with the COVID-19 app, I would say. The more participants to this initiative, the more successful this can be. Now, whether all patients would be able to join, again, that's a personal consent. From other research, we know that patients who have a specific illness are very eager to, to share, more eager than the general population, as long as they understand what will be done with the research. So the answer would be the more patients joining, and that's again why we have first the disease-specific focus. We try to explore what would make more patients join and what would they expect as benefits as well.
Mm-hmm. But you think it would be applicable also for other diseases?
Yes, certainly. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And you think the patients will join easily?
Yes, to be seen. We have not reached out to the patients in this project, but yeah, that's what we saw in other projects in different disease areas. Some are more difficult, like neuroscience or depression is sometimes a bit more challenging. Oncology, it seems that patients really have a very high eagerness to join projects.
To participate,
Not only to benefit themselves, but also for future patients. That's what they said explicitly.
And yeah, it's maybe difficult in a 3 years project, but do you think also to explore the family members?
Good question that we haven't considered, but I can bring it back to the teams. Yeah, it will be driven also to a large degree, I must say that, by the physicians, so investigators that will also be in charge of the research questions that can be asked in this first project. So yeah, that will be something I can bring back to the team.
Yeah. And I had also a question: what would be your recommendation for regions to make the health data more accessible?
Yeah. Yes, I have one answer, and that is harmonization using similar harmonization models like the ones that are now in Europe through IMI Eden, for example, the OMOP Common Data Model. It's really a highly credible model that is it has its sources or roots in academia and worldwide in the US, Columbia University, but also Asia Pacific has an enormous traction, and now in Europe several, if you would Google IMI Eden, then this is one of the models that allows for sharing data. On the other hand, there is also SAPHIRE, that I've mentioned it on the slide. It's oftentimes also more emerging from the IT departments, and it's all about standardizing and cleaning data. Otherwise, you cannot share. But secondly, also to have this legal framework. That's still, of course, we have GDPR, but then in order to work and share health data and different types of research, there is an enormous evolution also in the clinical research, like non-pragmatic, we call it non-conventional trial models, platform trials, you may have heard, they do partially use real-world data. So the whole legal and ethical framework is an important discussion for the coming years. In order to allow in Europe to also have the right way of using patient-level data.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Kathleen.